Some places are more difficult to reach than others. The Wild Coast is a good case in point. Travelling there by air is scenic and convenient, but to really experience the area's charms, you need real 4x4s and real all-terrain tyres. Tyre technology is vital when it comes to vehicle dynamics, but how do you prove to people that those 4 pieces of rubber on the wheels really play an important role? Well, one way to do that is to put the tyre in the right situation and then see whether it can cope with challenges. We are on the Wild Coast, probably one of the last stretches of South Africa where you still get the kind of terrain that 4x4s struggle with. And for that reason, it's been perfect for a 3-day trip down to the areas of Wavecrest and Mazeppa, taking some trails that look tough enough for pedestrians, let alone vehicles, and to see whether the General Grabber 80 and General Grabber MT tyres can in fact rise to the challenge. Our trip started off with an overnight stay at the smart Premier Hotel ICC in East London, but the adventure only kicked off in earnest once we'd left the city far behind us and had crossed the Tyre River mouth by ferry before winding our way into the heartland of the Wild Coast. The 3-day journey would not only take in some of the area's most spectacular scenery, but also offer some truly challenging driving conditions, ideal to put the General tyres through their paces. From rocky slopes to river crossings, thick mud and narrow tracks, the route would test the Jeep Wranglers, the drivers, and specifically the General tyres to the limit. As General Tyre product manager Ryan Fasaki points out, an event such as this is a very effective way of demonstrating the capabilities of the tyres in the conditions they were designed for.
Well, General Tyre has been around for 100 years, and as a brand, we often talk about how good our product is, but we don't very often get an opportunity to come into the wild, into terrain where these tyres work particularly well. So when we have a mix of guests, guests that have experienced many different types of vehicles and products, it's very easy for them to judge for themselves, and that's where the credibility comes from.
General's SUV tyre range already enjoys a reputation for toughness and traction. Most of the Jeeps were fitted with General Grabber ATs.
The AT is a 50/50 on-road, off-road tyre. So what you see here is a tyre that's capable of driving to the shops and school run and still coming and doing some really wild stuff. It's a tough tyre, it's an aggressive tread pattern, and I think the consumer is looking for something that makes the vehicle really look like an off-road vehicle.
But as it proved on the Wild Coast route, rugged aesthetics is only one aspect of the Grabber AT's appeal. Its construction and inherent toughness ensure that the go definitely matches the show.
These tyres have particularly strong sidewalls. They are able to flex a lot more, which means you can lower the pressures to get better traction. And when you're climbing over obstacles, rocks and whatever, you actually see the tyre deflecting and moving over those obstacles. And without tearing or puncturing. So that's very important when you go off-road, to have a tyre that can do that.
One of the Grabber AT's strongest suits is its adaptability. Ideal for the conditions on the Wild Coast, where rocky descents and gullies can unexpectedly make way for deep water and thick, oozing mud. Vital here is a versatile tread pattern.
In mud, it's got to be able to dig. It's also got to be able to clean itself. So these tread patterns are designed that they have self-cleaning mechanisms where the mud flows through and out rather than staying clogged, because then you lose traction.
Impressively, the Grabber ATs proved their mettle at every turn. From treacherous rocky river crossings to steep and slippery uphills, there was no stopping the General tyres. But the Jeep Wranglers deserve some of the credit too. To test off-road tyres, you need competent off-road vehicle, and we couldn't have asked for a better partner for this tyre test than this Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. The Rubicon name, of course, pertinent to an off-road trail in the States, which every Jeep vehicle has to be able to traverse to earn that name. We, of course, not in the States, but in the Wild Coast. But we've certainly found some very challenging terrain to put both the tyres and the vehicles through. And the good news is that these Jeeps have managed to chug through everything almost without raising a sweat. The specs provide some clues regarding the Rubicon's capabilities. The heart beating under the bonnet is a 3.6-litre V6 Pentastar engine, good for 209 kilowatt of maximum power, combined with a 347 Newton-meter torque peak. A 5-speed automatic gearbox with low-range transfer case adds to the Wrangler's capabilities. We had reached the Wave Crest Resort without a hitch, despite some pretty tough conditions, but there was more to come.